Hello and welcome back to GCAT Chat. My name is Veronica Patty and I'm the Coalition Coordinator for Gardner Community Action Team. And today our topic is going to be e-cigarettes and vaping. I have Tina Grosowsky with us here. She is the Project Coordinator for Central Mass Tobacco Free Community Partnership. And this is sort of piggybacking on our campaign you may see on a billboard starting in March. We're going to run it March, April, and May. The campaign is called Escape the Vape, and it's going to just highlight some of the issues that might come with using e-cigarettes. So thank you very much for being here for the second time, Tina.
Thank you for having me.
And so let's go right into it. I know, we know from the data that tobacco use among youth is down significantly, but it's being replaced by other products. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. We just have new statewide data, and I know you have Gardner youth data as well, that because of all the good work that we've done over the past 10 years, really, and due to the taxes on tobacco products, the use of tobacco products by youth, especially regular combustible cigarettes, has gone down, which is really exciting. So we know that tobacco use kids know that tobacco use is really harmful for your health, and they've been taught that for many years now, and they understand that. But what they don't understand is the electronic cigarettes, or they call them vape pens or hookah pens, are just as harmful for you in terms of the nicotine. So they're addictive, and they also have some trace chemicals in them as well. We know that addiction to electronic cigarettes or vape pens can possibly lead to addiction and go on to use nicotine in regular combustible form when they get older. So in Massachusetts, the rate of youth that have been using electronic cigarettes ever used is about 44%. So that's, almost 50% have ever tried it, and that goes for kids who are, experimenting and don't really understand, again, the negative effects of it. So youth use of electronic cigarettes, we know, exceeds the use of any other tobacco products. Yeah. So,
and this is just coming from, obviously not professional opinion, but, hearing that some people use the e-cigarettes to quit smoking. How do they justify that? Is there not enough information out there that they would think that that's the good step toward quitting smoking?
Right. So if we're talking about smoking combustible regular cigarettes, we know that they're carcinogenic, and the burning of the tobacco causes tar, which is what causes lung cancers and the other emphysema and the other diseases. So electronic cigarettes, vape pens, are not burning any tobacco. There's no tobacco burning in them. So they're safer than regular combustible cigarettes. So people turn to them as a first step to quit using combustible cigarettes and to still get nicotine. But that's the problem. Okay. They're still getting the nicotine. And what we recommend to people is to use the FDA-approved nicotine replacement products, which is like the nicotine patch or the gum or the lozenges, which are in Massachusetts. They're covered by insurance if you have a prescription from your doctor. And then you talk to a trained tobacco treatment counselor, and the counselor will coach you through getting the correct nicotine patches to match your intake of nicotine when you smoked cigarettes, and then eventually you reduce that amount of nicotine through the patches, and then eventually quit altogether. When you're using vape pens or e-cigarettes to quit smoking, you don't know how much nicotine is in them. They've only recently become regulated by the FDA. So they may say that they have 25 milligrams of nicotine in it, but you don't know for sure. And then you have to reduce down the amount of nicotine that you're getting, and with the patch it's all controlled and matches the amount of nicotine that you get in combustible cigarettes, because it's been developed and researched. So there's no research behind using vape pens or e-cigarettes to quit smoking. We know that for sure if you use nicotine patches or the gum or the lozenges and cessation counseling. You have twice as more likely to quit than just regular, just quitting for good.
So, talking about a little bit of research, I'm sure there's not enough data on e-cigarettes and or vape, products out there, right? So how like, because it took us a while to get some data on regular cigarettes, correct?
Right.
I mean, what is it, in the 50s? It was perfectly acceptable. No one really knew it was bad.
Right.
And then, obviously, when we learn more, we're like, oh,
right.
this is bad.
Right.
So
we need to get more research on electronic cigarettes and vape pens. They haven't been out there that long. What research has been done over the past 5-6 years does show that the nicotine is in a cartridge, which I brought some along today to share. And of course, they're in all sorts of flavors, and that's the piece for youth that's very disturbing and what we should talk about some more. But this is an example of the little cartridge that the nicotine is in. It sits in an aerosol compound that when it is heated up by a small battery that's in the e-cigarette, then you inhale the aerosol with the nicotine. Now the aerosol is kind of like a vegetable glycerin called polypropylene glycol, and it's kind of like when you use spray pan when you cook. So it's very mist aerosol. And when you inhale it repeatedly into the lungs, where is it going? So what someone exhales is the heated aerosol, but some of it is going to stay in the lungs. So that eventually falls down to the bottom of the lungs. So the inside of the lungs are moist because it's human tissue. So we know that's like water, and the aerosol is like oil. So we know water and oil don't mix, right? Any science fifth grader knows that. So eventually the oil starts building up in the bottom of the lungs and can cause bronchitis and other respiratory illnesses. So the research has shown that to be true. So certainly for children, we don't want them using electronic cigarettes repeatedly because they have developing lungs, developing brains. We don't want the nicotine going to their brains and then getting addicted to the nicotine in their brain as it's growing. And we don't want them getting the aerosol in their lungs as they're growing either. So the more research that will come by years going forward is going to be important. But we do know that now for sure.
Right. So, you talked about the little capsules that go into the e-cigarettes. What else is being put in the e-cigarette? What else can you, put
Yes, so all these aerosols are flavored. They have many flavored products, which are like grape and bubble gum and cotton candy, which are really appealing to youth. You can get those in any liquid form, and then they can get put into a cartridge. Unfortunately now as well, with all of the increased use of marijuana that's in the country now, and it's going to be coming to Massachusetts even more because of the legalization, you can get on the internet, and pretty soon you'll be able to get in the stores that sell marijuana products, liquid THC. You can put that inside these cartridges, and then you can inhale the THC in the mist, in the aerosol, and vape marijuana that way. And it has no flavor. So if you're using them in a school environment, in a bathroom, no administrator or teachers would be able to tell that you've been vaping marijuana because it does not smell. So that's a concern, obviously, for youth.
Big concern.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a few times, the flavored, the different flavored products. There is new legislation that was passed. You want to talk about it a little bit specifically for Gardner? Yes,
it's exciting. So one of the projects that we work on statewide is to get towns to pass policy at the local level, as you know. And recently the town of Gardner, in a tri-city effort with Fitchburg and Leominster, passed what we call the flavor restriction policy, which was very exciting because we got a lot of community support for it. The Gardner Community Action Team was a big supporter of the policy and helped to promote and educate the community, especially in Gardner. So the Board of Health had a public hearing and then voted to pass this regulation, which restricts all flavored tobacco products, which basically is everything except cigarettes. The only flavored cigarettes that are legal are menthol cigarettes, and those will still be allowed to sell in the convenience stores or the gas stations and mini marts. But from now on, starting March 1st, in all 3 towns, all the products that we've talked about for all these years, the flavored products, can only be sold in an adult-only establishment. So that would be a tobacconist shop, which I don't believe there is one in Gardner, or a vape shop or a smoke shop. So that really restricts where youth see those products and where they can purchase or get an older teen to purchase it for them.
And that is a big factor into limiting access and nicotine, right? We know that for a fact.
That's right.
So we're talking about e-cigarettes, the flavors, but that's really nothing new, correct? I mean, the tobacco industry, as we just mentioned, done it for years. So what is their sort of a strategy? Why why they put up it's not for adults, right? Adults not gonna go for a bubblegum flavored flavored tobacco product, right?
That's right. So the tobacco industry, their main goal is to make money for their shareholders, and they've seen the rates of smoking go down in the United States. The profit from the tobacco industry's products in the United States has gone down, so that's why they've expanded overseas to India, China, South America, and Asia. And so in the United States, to get new customers, they have to get young people hooked on nicotine. So they figured out how to make these flavored products, put them in the tobacco products, and disguise the flavor of tobacco. And now with the electronic cigarettes, they have a product that has no tobacco in it, and it's all just the flavor that the kids are using.
And nicotine.
And the nicotine, right. And our job, and that's why it's so nice that you're having the GCAT chat, to educate the community about the dangers of nicotine, and that nicotine is not good for youth, and that's really important. Nicotine is a drug, and nicotine works on the body in negative ways as well. Nicotine is a vasoconstrictor, which means that when you use it, it constricts your cardiovascular system, and it makes your heart rate increase and makes your heart work much faster because it has to pump the blood through the vascular system, which is getting constricted, so it's got to work harder. So the more years, repeated use over and over and over again of nicotine, whether it's in combustible cigarettes traditionally or whether now it's in the vape products, is going to cause heart disease. And that's what causes heart disease when someone's been a lifetime smoker. It is due to the heart issues that come with nicotine.
So how would we, obviously this is a big fight because we have these big tobacco companies trying to, target our youth. What as a parents, as a grandparents, as teachers, what can we do to make sure that youth understands that, even though the product might be appealing to them, it might look like it's harmless, it's really not. What is some of the things we can say to youth and without scaring them?
Yes, well, youth are smart, and that's how they learn the best, right? And so teaching them the science about nicotine is really important, and teaching them about the addictive qualities of it is really important, and using youth to educate other youth. So we have the statewide youth organization called the 84 Movement, which helps to educate youth across the state, and we've had chapters here in Gardner, and now we've got a new one started at Mount Wachusett Community College, and they have youth that have been trained and educated from the 84 staff to talk to younger high school students and even middle school students about these flavored products, about the tobacco industry and how they target youth. And they also educate other adults, especially legislators, so that we can look at passing policy not only at the local level but at the state level as well. So the youth from the Mount Wachusett Community College are going to be going to Boston on March 15th, which is a day nationally called Kick Butts Day, where youth go to their state houses and talk to their legislators about what they see in their communities, what their communities have been doing to fight the tobacco industry and put local policy into place, and then talk to the legislators about seeing that kind of policy be put into place statewide. So the flavor restriction that we talked about before is a local policy. Another local policy would be raising the age to 21 that youth can buy cigarettes or other tobacco products. And Gardner has not put that into place, but many communities in Massachusetts have, I believe about 140 now. So that the legislators at the state level are looking to see if they want to implement that as a statewide measure. The other statewide policy they would be looking at would be a pharmacy ban. So Gardner implemented a pharmacy ban, I think 4 years ago now at least, so that you can't purchase any tobacco products in any pharmacy in Gardner. And that was a really first great step that Gardner took to limit access for youth. So those are the policies that the youth get educated in and about the tobacco industry, and then they go to the State House to talk about that.
Great.
Yeah.
And that would be a great, they get to meet same groups from the whole state,
That's
correct?
right.
I mean,
That's
so,
right.
So how many students do you know?
So there's about, between 250, 300 students from across the whole state go to the State House. They do a march on the Boston Common and go into the State House and have a training, and then make legislative appointments with their legislators and talk to them. So anybody can view the videotape from last year on the 84 website. If you just Google the 84 movement, there's a video about Kick Butts Day from 2015 and 2016 last year, and then this year will be another video will go up.
Great. Oh, that's great. So did you want to share any of, and show the viewers any of the products, or mention some of the flavors who are very much
right. So we talked about the electronic cigarettes. This is a fairly traditional one now. They used to actually look like a cigarette. Now they come in more colors, and which I'll show you. This is a traditional one. It looks like a pen. So again, if you were a high school student, you could keep it in your pocket, in your backpack, and a parent or a teacher wouldn't recognize it as electronic cigarettes. This is a company called Blue, which has now been bought up by the big tobacco company R.J. Reynolds. So now most of the products that you see on the market these days are marketed by the tobacco industry itself, and so they've taken over the market. This one is more new school. It's called Melon Dew, and as you can see, the coloring is really attractive, maybe to attract a young high school student, especially a female. Again, the flavorings, this one is lemon dew. This one is purple, and it is, they call them vape pens or hookah pens. This probably is a grape flavored one. And again, it has a battery in it. You take off the top and you open it up, and then that turns on the battery and it heats up the aerosol and you inhale it. So
are these, and this is because I've never used the product, are these reusable?
Some of them are reusable, some of them are one-time use systems. So these are one-time use after you turn it on, but it's good for about 1,000 puffs, which is equivalent to about a pack of cigarettes. So it's a lot of nicotine that you're getting. And then they make larger e-cigarettes, which they call tank or open system, where you buy the nicotine juice, they call it, in a little bottle that kind of comes like a bottle of Visine that you might use for contact lenses or something. And then you put the e-juice into the rectangular tank as you need to. So you fill it up and then you use it. So that's why it's called an open system.
But there's no smell to it, right?
There's no smell to it, right. And then there's some that look like this that are reusable, and that's why you can buy the refillable cartridges. And you take out the old cartridge and you put in the new cartridge. And again, these are flavored. This one is Vivid Vanilla, and this one is Cherry Crush. So again, the enticing flavors that kids are used to. Kids in the United States have grown up with flavors. We've raised our children on flavored cereals. We've raised them on flavored Jell-O, frozen yogurt, and candy. So obviously they know all about what flavors they like and what flavors are attracted to.
I'm thinking not just food, a toothpaste and a lip gloss, or stuff like that. That's very similar names and visual for that. So so obviously they know that. But so one thing you mentioned is that the tobacco companies are now shifting to the e-cigarettes market. Is that obviously for profit, correct?
Right. So a pack of cigarettes in Massachusetts costs about $10 because most of that is, a lot of that is tax. So in Massachusetts, $3 on every pack of cigarettes that goes to the state into the general fund. So none of that money is actually used except for a small percentage of it for prevention, like our program. So
what is it? So do you know what is it being used for treatment?
No, it's not being used for treatment. It goes into the general fund, which is for the bridges, for the roads, for infrastructure in Massachusetts. Right. So none of it goes towards public health. Except for the percentage that goes to our program, which is about $4 million a year, but $1 billion comes into the state between the taxes on cigarettes and the master settlement money that came from when the tobacco industries were sued by the attorney generals in 1998. And they won the suit, which allowed the tobacco companies to have to pay to the states the money that they owed for the cost of the illnesses from tobacco use. So every year up until 2025, which is slowly coming up, the state of Massachusetts gets $800 million every year to use for the general fund. It goes into the general fund. So plus the $100 million that's from the taxes, that's about $1 billion a year, and only $4 million goes to prevention. So the rest of it goes to the industry. So these products are cheap because they're not taxed like regular tobacco products, because the tobacco in a small flavored cigar is cheap. It's pipe tobacco, and it doesn't have the tax on it. So the industry needs to have young people transition from these early products into buying regular combustible cigarettes, because that's how they continue to make their money.
So they start them on the cheaper products, and they work their way up.
Right. These are considered starter products by the industry. Right.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. And was there any other data you wanted to share?
Well, I think the good news is that even among the Tri-City effort, Gardner at the local level, Gardner, Fitchburg, and Leominster, we have more work to do on educating youth about the e-cigarettes and the hookah pens and vape pens. And so we need to work on that so we can see those statistics come down, like we did see the tobacco use come down. So
how long, can you talk a little bit about that? How long it took for the, what do we have now for tobacco use among youth?
It's pretty low now. It's around 12%, even lower in some cities and towns. So that's been, the 84 movement was started in 2002. So it's been around for about 14 years now. So the youth rate used to be up, in the 30%. So it's taken over 10 years to drop that rate down to that low rate. So hopefully, because of the policies that we're putting into place with these flavor restrictions, the age increased to 21, and hopefully some statewide policies, we might see the reduction of electronic cigarettes, much quicker, we would hope. yeah, for that data.
That's good. That is good numbers, though.
Yeah.
I mean, in 10 years, that's seems like a long time, but it's really not.
It's a short time.
To lower, to lower the numbers like that.
Right. So campaigns like the GCAT new Escape the Vape campaign is going to be really important in town. It'll be the first campaign, I think, that the GCAT has used just targeting electronic cigarettes and vape pens. Yeah.
And that is changing too. We always, obviously, the coalition always talks about the changing our agenda because the issues are changing. So when we put in place the prescription medication, prevention used by youth, it wasn't really that big of a issue yet, but then within a few years, now it's obviously a big issue. So we're always changing. So e-cigarettes were not issue 5 years ago because they were not. Right? How long ago? I don't know. Maybe I'm mistaking, but how long ago?
They just started becoming more of a concern about 5-6 years ago.
Right. So
definitely.
Yeah. So we have to also adjust. We've been working on tobacco for all this time, and we're doing a great job. But now we have to adjust that this is what it looks like. So we're and we're not really that far off since we know that tobacco companies are still behind us. So
That's
it's not.
There's always more work to be done.
Right.
That's
So they're just shifting the product, but
That's right.
they're not really changing
their strategies.
Who they are. Yeah.
That's right.
They're using the same old same. So
yes, and we know that. They didn't start, it's illegal to make flavored cigarettes. So in 2008, 2009, that's when the tobacco industry realized that they couldn't make flavors in cigarettes, So they figured out they have to put flavors in something else. And that's why the electronic cigarettes became such a good product for them to sell the flavorings in because of the regulations.
So why would it be prohibited to put the flavors in the cigarettes?
That was a federal law that got put into place, early when the Surgeon General's reports started coming out about cigarettes and the dangers of cigarettes, because we knew the negative health effects of them.
Right.
So it was more obvious.
So the reasoning was the targeting youth or the
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, making them more enticing and to younger people. And we knew the negative health effects.
Right.
So, they've gotten away with using them in the flavored cigarettes, in the flavored cigars, and especially in electronic cigarettes because the data wasn't out there about the use.
Right. So the more data we get, the more research can be done. We can hopefully prove that they're as addictive and harmful to your health as cigarettes were, regular cigarettes. Great. So before we say goodbye today, I would like to invite you to our next event on April 5th. We're going to have a youth forum at the public library. From 5 to 6:30, and again April 5th. So please come join us. We're going to be discussing some issues that the youth in Gardner, specifically Gardner area, might be experiencing. And we would love to have you. And thank you, Tina, for coming on the show again. I'm sure you'll be here again sometime soon. But thank you very much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
And we will see you next time. Thank you for watching.